go. What is good in the hood, y'all? How's everybody doing? Give me 1 second. I want to check and make sure it sounds okay on my end. Perfect. That sounds good. And then let me do one thing here before we get started. And today, guys, we're going to be talking about how to deal with collections accounts on credit reports. And so I'm kind of dive into the process of what I would do in a situation, and of course do a Q&A. So if you have any questions about how to deal with collections accounts, just throw it down in the chat, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions, whether it has to do with collections accounts or not. Just go ahead and throw it in and we'll jump into it. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share this in my group. And then we'll get started. There we go. No, that's not it. Alrighty, cool. Looks like we're all set with that. Perfect. Yeah, so pretty much that's it. How to deal with collections accounts. The main reason why I wanted to jump into collections accounts is kind of going back to how I was talking in the previous live about how your credit score is compiled. Typically, uh, what happens is, to get a collection account, it just means that you've missed payments. So it might be a situation where either you had a bill that was due that you didn't pay, or it might be a situation with like credit cards or any type of installment loans where you missed repeated payments, and eventually it became a charge off and it was sent to collections. So I wanted to kind of jump into what I would do in that situation, and then kind of walk you guys through and hopefully answer any questions you guys might have about what process you should follow for collections. Because I think that at times there comes points where people just focus on either A, they just leave it on their credit, or B, they just kind of send it off to a collection agency and they don't really know what's happening. And so I want to kind of tell you from my point of view what I would do for anybody that came to me having issues with like collections accounts or anything like that, and kind of give you guys the process with it. But before we get started, what I'll do is I'll pull up a little chart here. Hopefully you guys can all see that. If y'all can't see it, just let me know. This is your FICO score, and it kind of talks about how your FICO score is broken down, like each different category. Now, in the last live, I was kind of explaining how I always focus on the categories, the two ones on the left. So let's see, yeah, this one, here we go. So the 35 category, 35% payment history, and then the 30% amounts owed. Okay, that's the two categories I always focus on, because those will make up 65% of your score. And just by you doing those two categories, you'll be like, if you can optimize those two categories, you'll be really close to getting into the 700 club. And it's a simple process. By you just doing that, you're going to be way better off than you would trying to just like focus all over the place. And the thing is, with the payment history category, this one right here, that category is a little more broad than the one at the top, the amounts owed. Amounts owed just means you paying down your credit cards. But the payment history category it can focus on like late payments. So you missing payments, payment history. But what happens is, if you miss your payments often on the same account, you keep missing your payments, or for a long period of time you're not making any payments, it can become a charge off and then a collection account. And those can negatively impact that section. So really it's just it's going to be the collection accounts that are going to give you the biggest hit. Okay. So if you guys have any questions about that or anything, just throw it in the chat. I'll be answering any of those questions. And let me put my link for the YouTube as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much the gist of it. The way I always look at collections accounts is there's a set process I follow, going from dealing with it in terms of like disputing it, all the way until trying to come up with, kind of negotiating with the actual debt collector themselves. Okay. First thing you should always be doing, no matter what, the first thing you'll want to do is you always want to make sure that you are going to the credit bureaus first. I typically go to the credit bureaus first and just ask them to verify the account. Okay. Now, there are some techniques. If you want, what you can do as well is you can first send a letter to the debt collector telling them to validate, and then at the same time you're sending a letter to the credit bureaus asking them to verify. The reason why people say they like to try that technique is because technically, whenever a credit or debt collector has not validated a debt with you, right? They haven't showed you proof that you actually owe the debt. They have to stop their collection activity, so they can no longer try to collect the debt on you, right? At the same time, that means they can't make any type of phone calls, they can't send any type of mail, any more mail to you, and they technically cannot verify the debt until they validated it with you. So the reason why people like to do two, like attack them both at the same time, attack the credit bureaus and the debt collector at the same time, is because as soon as you send that letter for them to validate, the debt collectors can't answer any more mail, even if they even if whenever you send the letter to the credit bureau saying, hey, verify this account, the credit bureau is going to reach out to the debt collector, but the debt collector can't respond because they haven't proved that you actually owe it, or at least they haven't proved to you, right? And so that's why people like to kind of attack both sides of it. So that's one technique you can do, is trying to attack both sides. At the very least, what I say is go to the credit bureaus and just ask them to verify the account. Now, you will be surprised. A lot of times, depending on the type of account, depending on how old it is, that might be enough to just make it fall off. Because what happens is, like, let's say you have an old Sprint bill, right? So I have an old Sprint bill, and I kept missing payments. So Sprint eventually they stopped trying to collect it from me, and they just sold it to a debt collector. Well, what happens is it's going to go from Sprint to a debt collector to another debt collector, and these debt collectors are just going to keep selling that debt over and over again. They're going to try to collect from me. If they can't, they're going to sell it to the next guy, right? And what happens is, in that process, things get lost, right? So some debt collector is going to be lazy, and instead of sending over every single file he had from Sprint, he's going to just send over like a couple documents that he can immediately find. He's not going to try to send all the information. For whatever reason, things get lost. And so what typically happens is the second or even the third debt collector that's trying to collect on that Sprint bill, they might not have all the information. So technically, legally, they can't prove that I owe that debt, which means they technically can't even collect on the debt. So a lot of times what you're going to see is accounts are just going to completely fall off just like that, right? And so that's kind of an aspect that you want to look at. Let's see. Cool Breeze says, when they ask you to verify your birthday and address. Now, so typically what I'll say is you do want to verify the address, right? What I do is first I ask them what address they have on file, right? And just to get an idea like where they've been sending mail. But the reason why you want to verify your address with them is because if they do send you any type of proof or anything, and you never received it, or if they send you like a dunning letter, like typically as soon as a debt collector gets an account, they'll send a letter immediately to that to whatever address they have on file, right? And you have 30 days to respond. If you don't respond within 30 days, then it's going to be a situation where they can try to pursue legal action depending on how big the debt is, right? So I typically recommend you can go ahead and verify the address. I typically recommend you even update all your addresses on your credit report. That's usually like the first thing I'll do with someone is like they're trying to start fixing their credit. The first thing we'll do is get all their old addresses removed, just have their current address, right? But yeah, the big thing is really so you can get that dunning letter, because technically they could send a letter to a wrong address, and it might be like your old address and you didn't get it, but they can still take you to court, right? Because they sit that out and they didn't hear a response from you within 30 days. So you just want to make sure that like you're at least giving them an address where they can send correspondence to you. Even a lot of people will tell you, like whenever you get debt collectors that call, you can technically tell them not to say, hey, don't call me anymore, and they won't call you anymore. But you want to be careful with that, like just completely cutting off all communication with them, especially if you're in a situation where it's a large debt. So like if you owe, let's say, for example, it was like a car that got repoed or something, and you might owe like $5,000, right? After everything's done, like they auction off your car, and then they usually leave you with the remaining amount. They'll use whatever amount from the auction to pay off as much of the loan as they can, and the rest it just pretty much gets sent to collections, right? And you want to be careful with it, because the issue that can happen is if it's a large enough debt, then it makes sense for them to just sue you and then try to do like wage garnishment or something, right? If they're able to get wage garnishment, depending on what state you are, it's more difficult depending on the state. But if they're able to get wage garnishment, then it's going to be literally like you get every time when you get paid on Friday, your company that or your employer has to send a portion of your check to these guys, to whatever the collector is. So you want to make sure that depending on how big the debt is, that you're careful whenever you're telling them like, hey, don't call me anymore, don't reach out to me, whatever it is. I typically, the way I look at it is, if it's above $1,000, and depending what type of debt it is, if it's above $1,000, then that's when you want to be a little bit more careful. Anything below $1,000, it really doesn't make sense economically, right? Because if I'm a debt collector and I have to hire an attorney, it might not make sense for me to hire an attorney to have them sue whoever the person is that owes the debt, because I'm not going to get that much money back, because I still got to pay the attorney. I got attorney's fees I got to pay. You got to pay a bunch of court fees, things like that, right? So that's one way you want to look at it as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I typically recommend the address, or verify the address and your birthday. Typically, they'll have that information depending on what kind of debt it is. But I think it's fine verifying that information. More so, what you want to do is, like, if they ever reach out to you, you verify the address and then tell them to send you information. So send me proof that I owe this debt, right? Tell them, this debt doesn't look familiar. Please send me proof that I owe this debt. And going forward, what I typically tell them is, going forward, all communication, let's do it through mail as opposed to over the phone, right? So you want to try not to get on the phone, because when you get on the phone, they're going to try to do things to try to trick you, right? Like, they're going to try to find ways to get you to admit that you owe the debt, right? It looks like Cool Breeze is saying, I have 3 negative accounts, all medical. Yeah, so I mean, with the medical, it's okay to verify the address. You just want to be careful whenever you get on the phone with those guys, right? Because the issue is, they could technically, like, I'll give you an example, right? You get on the phone with me, I'm the debt collector. Like, I'm gonna try to find any way I can to get you to either admit that you owe it, or to even get you to pay $1. Because think about it, when would you ever pay a debt that you didn't owe? It don't make no sense. Nobody would pay a debt that they didn't owe. So I'm gonna try to get you to admit that you owe the debt, or I'm gonna try to get you to even make any type of payment. That's why sometimes you'll hear they'll be like, hey, why don't we do a payment plan or something? You pay $20 today, and then we'll work everything else out. Because the second you made a payment, you've basically admitted that you owe the debt, because no one pays debts that they don't owe, right? And so that's why what I always recommend is, don't even get on the phone with them, because they'll try to manipulate you. They'll try to word it however to convince you to make that payment. You want to do things through mail, because it just gives you more time to think, right? You have the letter, then you can kind of decide from there. But yeah, the good thing about medical collections that I've noticed, at least, is they tend to fall off a lot easier. People that I've dealt with, I can't really tell you like with definitive facts why that happens, but I've noticed that they tend to fall off a lot easier. Yeah, so what I would say, that the first thing you want to do is send a validation letter to the debt collector, and at the same time sending a letter to the credit bureaus, just asking them to verify that this account is correct. Don't tell them, hey, this isn't my account, I get it off my credit report. Just say, hey, this account doesn't look, this is kind of what you want to write in the letter. Hey, this account doesn't look familiar. I was curious if you could please verify that this account is showing up 100% accurate. And that way I can be sure that it's something that I owe, because it doesn't look familiar. Right? You say something to that degree, and then you're not admitting that you owe it. You're not admitting that you don't owe it, but you're saying, hey, the credit bureaus, because by federal law, you guys have to make sure everything's 100% verified and accurate. Then that's all you're requesting, that they verify. So that's the route I typically recommend. No problem, bud. That's the route that I typically recommend, is you go that route. Let me see where I was going from there. Yeah, so I mean, that's going to be really the big thing. Just by doing that, you're going to see a lot of the collections accounts are going to fall off with that. And then if the debt collectors do actually manage to validate, then what you want to do is you want to take the information that they send you. More than likely, it's not even going to be the correct information. If they're just sending you a couple bills, then that's just not going to work. They got to be able to show like proof, whether it's like some sort of contract. They got to show you proof from Sprint that they got, like, because anyone could just get a couple bills, right? I mean, nowadays things are more electronic, but imagine like someone could literally be taking your mail and have like all your Sprint bills for the last 3 months, right? So you want to make sure that they're showing you proof, that whether it's a contract with your signature on it, or they're showing, there's a lot of different things that they can do to show you proof. But if they're just sending you bills, that's not enough. Okay. And that's where you want to just reach out to them and tell them, hey, that's not enough. You haven't been able to show me proof. I need you to remove this account unless you actually have significant proof that shows that I owe this account. And then what I typically recommend is once you get to a point where they still won't remove it, even after you've told them that they haven't showed sufficient proof, you can go to there's government organizations, right? You can go to like the FTC, the Fair Trade Commission, and just let them know that your rights are being violated by a debt collection company. There's somewhere where you can submit complaints, things like that. You can even go to CFPB, which is a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, them as well. And they typically are, you're more than likely going to get responses from those guys. Like what they do is you submit a claim and they literally reach out to that company. Like I remember I've used it a few times for clients, and I will literally type in the name of a company and it'll be like a drop down that's literally you're going to see that exact company. You just click on the name and they already have the contact info for that company. They're going to reach out to them directly and basically tell that company, hey, you need to resolve this within, I believe it was 14 days, 14 or 21 days, right? And that they give you a set amount of time for you to be able to resolve it. So that's definitely the route that I would take. Try to do that. But if it's something where you're getting, let's say that they give you all the proof, like they have, they have the whole paper trail, right? Like they have the contract has your name on it. They got proof from Sprint that it's their debt. They got every single bill you've ever done. They got everything, right? Your call records, everything, right? At that point, that's whenever you can start thinking about going the second route, which is just trying to negotiate the debt. Now, the reason why I was telling people this is I would say you don't really have to pay full price for a debt that you owe. Okay. I know there's some people who they feel, it's kind of like they feel bad, almost like they're ripping somebody off. But you got to think about it. At the end of the day, it's just business, right? Your debt that you have, you owed it to Sprint. And whenever you didn't pay it, Sprint sold it to somebody else. Now that company, let's say it was $1,000 that you owed Sprint. Sprint took that bill and they sold it to somebody for like 500, to a debt collector for 500. So that debt collector, in their mind, they're like, hey, if anything we collect above $500 is pure profit for us, right? So they're going to try to get 1,000 from you. But if they can't, they're willing to negotiate, maybe go down 900, 800. They're willing to move down a little bit because they know they're still making money. So that's kind of the way you want to look at it. Now, that's what I typically recommend is if you're not able to, like if you dispute it and it's not coming off, then the next thing you want to do is talk to them about negotiating it, coming to a settlement where you do a pay for delete. Okay, so that means that you literally tell them that I will pay to have this removed from my credit report. Okay, and typically you want to get that in writing, or if it's on a phone call, if you're talking to them on the phone, you want to make sure that you record the call so you have proof. Okay, and you want to make sure that you know whatever your phone laws or whatever your recording phone laws are. Like I'm in Texas, so in Texas is like as long as one person on the phone knows that they're being recorded, then it's legal. So that means I could technically record a phone call with a debt collector and I know the phone call is being recorded, so everything's fine, right? So you want to just have some kind of proof, because if you do pay and they don't remove it, then you can go get an attorney and end up suing them for damages, right? Because you have proof that they said they were going to remove it and they didn't do it. So that's typically going to be the route that I would want to take, right? It's literally quick and simple. You can do that, one by one on all your different collection accounts, and just from there be able to slowly remove each collection account that you're seeing on your credit report. So that's the route that I would take. Does anybody have any questions in terms of that, or anything else related to like their credit score or credit report? If you do, just go and throw it down in the chat. I think that was pretty much like the big thing I wanted to talk about. Let me see what else here. Yeah, I think that was pretty much the gist of it. I did want to touch a little bit on why even fix your credit score. Let me open this here. There we go. Yeah, I think that's a big part. I want to touch on why even fix your credit? I think that one of the main reasons that I decided to even do this channel was not just helping people fix their credit, but more so because I think your credit is like, if you're able to unlock the credit, it can help you just build wealth a lot quicker in your life, right? And I think I touched on this a little bit in the last live, but it's so crazy that even though, like, for example, whenever you're going to get a house, you might be able to get approved for a house with a 500 or 600 credit score. But just by you being in the 700s and the 720s to 750s, you're going to get significantly better rates. And you know, you might not think much of it, right? Because in your mind, you might just be like, yeah, I just want to get a house. I'm trying to get a house, trying to get that car, whatever it is. But what typically ends up happening is, let me see here. Yeah, Cool Breeze says, I believe in Florida is two-party consent. Yeah, you'll want to just double check. If you do a Google search, you'll be able to find that information. If that's the case, then what you want to do is you want to just talk to, either do it by mail. That might be the safest, because by mail you have the proof. You like, I sent this letter, they're going to give you a response, and you have like a physical response. Or just let them know on the phone, right? Because typically what happens is whenever you hop on the phone with debt collectors, they're going to tell you, they're going to say, hey, I just want to let you know this call is being recorded, right? Now you know, and they know that the call is being recorded. You can say the same thing. Yeah, okay, that's cool. I'm just letting you know I'm going to record it on my end. That way I just for my records, say something like that, and then boom, then you got the two-party consent. Me, the reason why I like what I like about Texas is, since we don't have to give that consent, typically, if you think about it, a debt collector, they know they're being recorded on their end, but they're not going to think that you're recording what they're saying. They think that the only evidence of that's going to be on the company's end, and they're not just going to give up the evidence showing that they were in the wrong. And so I won't even mention that I'm recording the phone call, because in my state it's just one party consent. And so anything they do wrong, you know, I got the perfect recording for it. And if I need to, I can just go to an attorney to either with the attorney get those accounts removed, or just straight up be able to sue them for damages on top of getting the account removed. So like any violations that debt collectors do, you're liable to get at least $1,000 per violation, or up to $1,000 per violation. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Let's see. Devin says, what are your rates to work with clients? I mean, you can shoot me an email right now. I'm not currently taking on more clients, but you can shoot me an email. That way I'll have your information. And it also depends on what state you're at. So just shoot me an email. I'll put it here in the chat so you can reach out to me. And then what I do too is, like, people reach out to me all the time, just like shoot me an email. And especially depending on your situation, you might not even need to work with anybody. It might be something where you got like one problem, or you have like a few issues on your credit report that are all pretty much the same thing. And in that situation, I can just give you that information. I even have letters that I have in my Facebook group, as well as letters that I just give out just like that. Yeah, no problem, Devin. Just reach out, man. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what the gist. If you guys have any other questions about the collection, dealing with debt collectors, just throw it down in the chat as well. But kind of going back to what I was saying, yeah, the reason why I even mentioned fixing your credit, I think people don't realize how powerful it is how powerful credit is. I used to tell people that, and I heard this from someone on Facebook too, is like Walmart buys majority of the stuff that they sell on credit. People don't realize that. So the way it works at Walmart is, like, let's say I own a business, right? And I sell soap, right? And I want to sell soap in Walmart. I want to sell my brand of soap. Let's say I own Dove soap and I wanted to sell Dove soap at Walmart. The way it works is Walmart's going to say, okay, Tommy, you want to sell Dove soap, right? We'll take 1,000 orders of your soap, right? And they'll say, listen, you got to give me the soap today, and I will pay you in 30 to 60 days. So Walmart doesn't even pay for the products that you see on their shelves. They usually don't pay for it for a couple of months, right? So they're pretty much buying it on credit. And what happens is, you know, they'll pretty much buy that soap, have it sent into the Walmart. And when you pay for the soap, then they take the money that you pay for that soap, they take their portion out of it, and then they actually pay Dove soap, right? So that's the kind of thing that you got to think about, is like, there's a lot of ways you can leverage credit, right? And so me, the way I like to look at it is, even like, this is going to be one of the best ways to, oh, it looks like Serena had said Minneapolis is a one-party consent. Exactly. That's just like Texas. So that, Serena, you want to do kind of what I was mentioning previously. If you didn't hear, you can just rewind a little bit. I was kind of touching base on debt collectors and how you can record the call whenever you're talking with debt collectors, because that way you're able to not only make, like, you have the evidence of what you guys talked about if you guys come to some sort of settlement, but if they're making any kind of, or having any kind of violations, then you have it on record and you can, if need be, go to an attorney afterwards and be able to just sue them for damages. So you also want to just record any phone calls that you have with debt collectors, though preferably you want to do it through mail just to be careful. Okay. But yeah, so kind of going back to what I was saying is, I think you can use credit. Don't look at credit as just like, yeah, I'm gonna get my credit up so I can, maybe I want to buy, I want to get credit cards so I can buy nice clothes, buy a nice car, whatever it is. Look at it in terms of like, how can I use it to build wealth? And I think that's kind of why I really want to start this channel, is because there's a lot of power that comes with credit, right? You can use it to buy a house. You can use it to buy even a rental property, maybe like a multifamily house, which means it's like a duplex or a fourplex, things like that, and be able to rent out the other units that you're not living in, things like that, right? But there's even more things that you're able to do with credit. I think I don't ever recommend starting a business using credit, but I do think it's a great idea to use credit to grow an existing business faster, right? So once you have a business that you started with your own money and you're seeing that it's starting to progress and get bigger and bigger, you can leverage your credit that you have to grow that even faster. You see, and I think that's where the real benefit of credit comes, right? So this channel, I don't want this channel to just be about, just focus strictly on credit. I want to kind of leverage a personal finance aspect of it too, to kind of talk about like, how do you go about, getting your finances right so you're in a good positions to leverage your credit. So I think there's multiple components to it. Serena said, could you speak with me offline? I need your help, please, to remove a bankruptcy. Serena, yeah, if you look somewhere in the chat, I put my email. Just reach out to me at my email, and then I'll get back to you so we can touch on that. Okay. So just shoot me an email, and then we can get in contact. So yeah, I mean, that's really the big thing. Yeah, man, like to kind of give you the way I look at it is, I'm really into like, starting, whether it's a side hustle or starting businesses and things like that, and using that to grow your wealth. Because at the end of the day, man, like, this is the way I look at it. Like, I pretty much I have a few different like businesses that I'm doing, and they bring enough income for me to be able to sustain my living and everything like that. But at one point I did work a job. I was actually a stockbroker. So I worked in the stock market and everything. And one thing that I've noticed is like, and I think people are realizing a lot more now just with the pandemic and what's going on in our current environment. But, if you think about it, I kind of looked at it in terms of the stock market. It's like, it's really risky to have a job if you really think about it. And just a job like that be your sole income. There's no problem with working a job. I think that's good. I think it's good to have something where you have stable income coming in. But the thing is, you want to make sure that you have different sources of income, whether it's maybe you have some sort of side hustle. Like, let's say you do Uber or Amazon Flex or any of those, like, what is it, like Uber Eats, things like that, where you're bringing in income that way. Or maybe you have like a small business that you started. Maybe you can even call it like a side hustle. Maybe you just, people pay you to do something like paint houses or something. I don't know what it is, anything, right? Because you want to make sure that you have money coming in from different sources. Okay. And the reason why I say that is because look at what's happened in our current situation, in our current landscape. A lot of people have lost their jobs because their companies were in situations where they just couldn't make it through the pandemic. And now if your sole source of income was the job that you had and they let you go, now you went from making X amount of money to zero, right? As opposed to maybe you could have went from X amount of money to maybe you're still making $1,000 a month because you have some side business you're running. Okay. And the way I've always looked at it is, I might have something that's like a side business, but I always look at it long term, where eventually one day I can make that business become the main thing I'm doing, right? Hopefully it's something that I enjoy and that I'd be happier doing than maybe the job that I'm working, right? So I think that's kind of how you want to look at it. But really, that's a big thing. And I was telling people in my last live, I'm kind of working through it all out right now, but I'm going to be talking a lot more about business credit as well on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, be sure that you are subscribing to my YouTube channel. I know right now I am going live on both YouTube and Facebook, and probably my Facebook group. But you want to make sure that you're also you're subscribing to my YouTube channel, because I'm going to be talking about business credit, and that's going to be something that I'm going to be touching on a lot more. So I want to make sure that and I don't have, I currently haven't, I'm going to be starting from scratch with the business credit. So I want you guys to be able to just kind of see me like slowly growing the business credit. And if you guys want to, y'all can follow along. If you already have a business that you have running, then you can go ahead and just follow along with it and follow along with me as I go through the process. So I'm going to be showing you the ups and downs. If there's anything that goes wrong, I'm going to be making a video about it to kind of walk you guys through that. So that's something that you're interested in. Be sure that you do subscribe. But yeah, I mean, that's really the gist of what I wanted to talk about today. Hey, no problem, Serena. Yeah, I'll be checking my email. It might take me a little time to respond to you depending on what I have going on, but don't worry, I respond to all the emails that I get. So I got you. Yeah, man, that's really the gist of what I wanted to touch on, man. So uh, it should be showing up. Let me type it in here one more time. Or let me just put it on the screen. So just take a look at that there on the screen. But yeah, I mean, so that's really the gist of what I wanted to touch on, guys, is just kind of just keep that in the back of your mind. It's not like you guys don't ever think like, I know whenever I first thought about starting a business, I used to think in my head that like I had to be the next like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, right? And I think that's not really how it has to be. What's up, Gen Z? This is another great YouTuber, guys. He's been doing a lot of stuff in the credit. Appreciate you coming through, brother. Yeah, so I mean that's kind of I've always looked at it in the sense that like don't just look at credit as, you know, just getting a nice car, getting a nice house, so on and so forth. You want to look in the long term, right? And how can I leverage credit to help build wealth and just help me get to financial freedom where then I can live life on my terms. And so I think that's big. That's kind of what I really started focusing on and kind of, yeah, just being where my main focus has been at. So definitely, guys, again, if you're interested in learning more about business credit, I will be touching on that. And I'm not going to say the channel is going to completely shift to us talking about business credit. I think personal credit's extremely important as well. But it's going to be kind of, I'm going to be shooting videos for both of those. So if that's something that you're interested in, then that'll be perfect. I'll be making like series for both of them. And also, those of you guys, I like my emails up there as well. If you're, what I'm planning on doing as well is I'm going to make a series where I like people send me information, like stuff that's showing up on their credit report, and I'll make videos talking about how I would deal with those specific accounts. Okay. Of course, I'm going to redact any type of personal information and things like that. But if that's something that you're interested in, or you want to be featured on a video, then shoot your information to me by email, and then I'll talk to you more about that process and things like that. Okay. So perfect. Yeah, man, that's gonna be pretty much it for this video, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my live stream. Appreciate you guys liking it. Be sure that you subscribe to the channel, guys. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my live streams. Again, right now I'm just kind of shooting. I don't really have a set schedule. It's just I've been really, really busy. So I'm just, if I find a little time in between stuff I'm doing, I'm gonna try to do a live stream. I want to try to do one once a week. I'm not sure how that's gonna work out, but at least if you hit that notification bell, then you're going to know exactly whenever I do go live. Okay. So that's going to be pretty much it, guys. If you have any other questions, definitely throw it down in the chat. Serena said, I'm sorry. Okay. I think I read that one already. Yeah, I did. Exactly. Yep. I'm assuming you're referring to the kind of what I was touching on. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Is like, it's just kind of, I want to be able to show you guys how to go about that process. Cause I think that, I mean, I was just kind of looking on YouTube. Like, this is something I've been researching for a while, just haven't gotten around to the whole business credit thing. But, you know, I've been on YouTube. I kind of look around the videos and I feel like it's just kind of, the information is out there, but it's so scattered that it's hard for you to be able to just piece everything together. So if I'm able to just make a series, I want it to be a series where you guys can get that information. Like, it'll be literally on my YouTube channel. So it's not this, you're not paying for this. It's nothing like that, you know. And I've seen there's places where you can pay they'll charge you a couple $100, maybe even like $400 or $500, and they'll give you the information. But to me, it's like, this is something I can try to get out to you guys for free. Then I'm going to try to do that. So, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking, man. It's unique and original. I appreciate that. And Serena said, great content. I appreciate that, Serena. Yeah, so that's gonna be pretty much it for you guys. I think it's needed, bro. More documentation is needed. We need more piecing it together. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And it'll be literally like, guys, I'm going to show you like everything. Of course, I got to redact like any type of my personal information, but you guys are going to be able to see the good, the bad, everything. I'm going to show you guys it all. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, whether it's going to be videos or live streams, but I want it to be a situation where you guys are going to be able to give feedback and kind of like dictate kind of how we're going to do it. And also, one other thing I forgot to touch on it is this is business credit without using your social. So that's kind of why it's going to take a little longer. This is going to be a series that's going to kind of stretch out a pretty decent amount of time because I intend to not put my social on any documentation that I do. So it's going to be strictly me using my EIN, which is my employer identification number. So that's linked to my actual business, my LLC. And so my social will not be on any paperwork. So it's going to take a little longer to get started and to get the ball rolling. But I mean, there's no personal guarantees on anything. So the reason why I like that is if it's a situation where, you know, you have a business and let's say you have a lot of debt on the business and something goes wrong, like for example, like with the pandemic, what we saw, a lot of business weren't able to make it through, right? And you don't want to be in a situation where you have personal guarantees for all this debt that you've had for your business, because now that thing falls back on you and it goes on your credit. And so I want to make it a series where all that stuff is going to be, it's going to stay in the business, right? That's the great thing about America. And like a lot of people don't know this, but in other countries, you can't, a lot of countries don't have bankruptcy. Like it's literally, if that business is failing, then it's on you, right? So there's a lot of places where they don't get the privilege that we have, where you can do bankruptcy, throw that company away and just jump up and start another one and keep the ball rolling, right? So that's something big that I want to leverage and just kind of, you know, show you guys all the different aspects of that. So that's going to be pretty much it. Yeah, man, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this live. Again, I'm gonna have another live next week. I'm not sure exactly what date. Hopefully I'll do it earlier in the week, but make sure that you're hitting that notification bell and you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. That way you don't miss any of the lives that I do end up doing. Okay. So I appreciate you guys' support. And that's going to be it for today, guys. I will see you at the next one.